my apologies for it not being a live video. I know that you guys really, really enjoy that, but scheduling did not allow for that this time. So for day 3 in our love languages and yoga series, we're going to talk about our second love language is quality time. So quality time, what does that mean to you, right? If this is your main love language, what does quality time mean? Quality time for me, it was 20%, because you'll get different percentages when you take this test of, what the love languages are, or what your love languages are comprised of, right? So 20% of quality time, when we talk about quality time in respect of other people, we want them to be present, mindful, put down the phone and look at me. Don't spend a lot of time messing with the phone or messing with other things. How does this look when we have to spend quality time with ourselves? We've talked a lot about this in the last couple of days, as we're starting to go through this series about how the pandemic has changed the way that we do things. We're spending a whole lot of time with ourselves, right? So, but we're also spending a lot of time, maybe not quality time, but we're also spending a lot of time with like our pets. If you have children at home, if you have a spouse that you live with, or a roommate of some sort, family, that sort of thing. So we're spending actually a lot more face time with the people who we don't typically see. If you work a full-time job that was out of the home, but now you're working at home, you'll find that, those 40 hours a week away from whoever it is that you cohabitate with, makes a big difference. So how does this look when we kind of like turn the focus back to ourselves? Instead of, it's real easy to dissect these relationships that we have with other people. How do I talk to my mom? How do I talk to my dad? What kind of tone do I use with my pets even? My little penny dog here. What tone do I use with my spouse, friends, family, whatever. But when we have to turn and kind of like look at ourselves, and if this is your main love language, this may land a little bit for you. Like, what does quality time mean when we have to spend quality time with ourselves? Yesterday we talked about words of affirmation. When we don't have positive self-talk, then that kind of indicates that we don't really like ourselves, right? We talk about, you spend the most time with yourself. Yeah, you spend the most time with yourself, but, up until, this pandemic and isolation and having to be quarantined, those of us that live alone are in a situation where, they were, on a vacation and had to stay or whatever it was. It lends a lot to having to kind of turn the lens a little bit and look at yourself, like kind of what's going on inside of here, and then you really kind of have to ask yourself, like, whoa, I am seeing and feeling some stuff that I have not ever felt before. Mainly because, when we're working outside of the home and we're kind of going through our regular daily lives, you don't really pay attention to that kind of stuff. So, that's why it was important for us here at the Smudge House, important for me as a yoga teacher and a meditation teacher, to kind of give these tools and kind of like just flick the light on a little bit and shed some light on something that you may or may not haven't had the time to look at, or notice that it was there but it kind of got dusty. So let's dust it off and take a look, right? So not all types of quality time look the same. There's a lot out in the media about self-care and what that looks like. What does that look like for you? And I'll ask that a lot through this series, because really this is really about you figuring out what your love language is, right? Or what composition of those 5 love languages, make up your specific language, right? And how do we take those things and turn them kind of on ourselves, right? So if quality time is your main love language, like what does quality time with myself mean? And it's not necessarily the stuff that you see on the front of the magazines. I don't like to sit in the tub with bubbles and bath salts and red wine for a lot of different reasons. I'm a type A Pitta person, if you know anything about Ayurveda, and which means I am fire and water, right? So sitting in a tub, just like kind of like marinating there, is just not something that feels constructively restful to me. And when I say constructively restful, and I'm probably going to go back to this a lot too, just because this is where my background is. 17 years in healthcare, I'm used to like going at a million miles an hour. So there's a real high incident of burnout for healthcare professionals, right? So for me, somebody who goes at a million miles an hour and who's used to getting a million things done in an 8-hour period at work, right? Rest is going to look different for me. I did this training recently about the central nervous system and how we get that parasympathetic bang for our buck, right? But when you're in burnout, you kind of get stuck there, right? You kind of get stuck in that relaxation mode once you get an opportunity to like really dig in, right? So once you start this journey to get rid of the burnout, and this will circle back to quality time, don't worry. Then it's like, then you gotta kind of figure out what feels like constructive rest. So when I got out of healthcare, the first thing I did was like, all right, I'm not doing crap. I'm not doing anything. I'm laying on the couch and I'm watching Netflix and I'm gonna eat to my heart's desire. That's what I wanna do. Because I had spent so much of my life not doing that or not allowing myself that time, that at the beginning of my changing career, that's what felt good, right? Well, after not even a while, like a very short period of time, that really start to feel unconstructive. Like then I started feeling guilty about not being productive or not working on a project or not getting something done or forgetting about something because I got so ingrained in my Netflix show that I completely forgot that I was supposed to do something that day. So it almost felt like that rest, right? That rest kind of almost felt as if it just wasn't giving me anything anymore. So it no longer felt like quality time with myself. See how I circled back there? That's probably the first time I've ever done that. So it no longer felt like quality time. It no longer felt like constructive rest. When I did my training about the central nervous system with Kristen Leal, if you guys have a chance to look her up, she's amazing. She knows a lot about anatomy, and she knows a lot about how meditation and yoga can help you support your central nervous system, because there is a physical component to this, right? If you're not spending quality time with yourself, and when I say quality time, yes, that is a love language, but it is also like constructive rest. Like how in your life, right, are you going to feel like you actually gave yourself a break? For somebody like me, and I'm only going to tell you from my point of view because of course I don't live in your guys' bodies. From my point of view, constructive rest or quality time feels like me working and accomplishing a short-term goal on a passion project. So putting this series together for you feels like constructive rest because I'm exploring yoga, I'm exploring meditation, two things that I love so much, but I'm also accomplishing something. I have to get on these videos and I have to explore this content and I'm like, so I'm hitting kind of like these short-term goals, right? So I feel like I'm accomplishing something, but it also feels nourishing to me because it's information that I feel is very beneficial to other people. And it's also fulfilling my need to help others. And it feels like rest because this stuff is easy for me. This kind of comes naturally and I live in this space. So to be able to expand on this and share it with you, it feels like constructive rest, right? So for me, quality time is being productive, but also being productive in something that feels nourishing, right? So you have to kind of explore that a little bit. How often do you spend the time doing that thing that's nourishing to you? And you know what? It may not be working on a passion project for you. It may be sitting in the tub, and that is totally okay. And there is every concoction of quality time in between. It can be anything in that gray area that lives between. You can be the girl on the front of the magazine that wants to sit in the tub with all the bubbles and the music and the candles and all those things. You can be that person. That's okay. But don't grasp that so hard that you spend more time convincing yourself that that's quality time when it really isn't. This is really an opportunity to just like sit with it for just a second. If you take this test, and on our Facebook page, there's actually a link to the free test on the Love Languages website. It is actually Gary Chapman's test. There's a lot of things out there that you can take that'll tell you, but this is actually Gary Chapman's test. It is free. So if you've taken this test and quality time is your main love language, right, you have to spend a little bit of time figuring out what quality means to you. For me, it's constructive rest. I hear quality time and I hear constructive rest. It's kind of the same thing. It goes hand in hand. So I encourage you to sit with it a little bit. Sit quietly with it, meditate on it, and think about like, what really makes me feel like, that was such a great day, right? What was it like on a Saturday months ago that we were like, oh man, I just wish that I could do that again. It felt so good to get out and do whatever it is that you were doing, or not do anything, whatever it is. And just get lost in it. Quality time is about something that brings you joy, and about something that you just kind of completely, everything dissolves around you, right? When you talk about quality time with like a romantic interest, what happens, right? You want to have quality time with like boyfriend, girlfriend, or whatever. And when you first start dating, like the novelty, right? So you go out to dinner and you have this great dinner and it feels like everything around you stops, right? That's kind of the feeling that you're looking for when we talk about quality time with ourselves. It is available to you. You just kind of have to dig a little bit and figure out what it is that really makes you tick. Spend a little bit of time finding out what it is, because I think it'll be worth it for you in the long run. I often feel guilty when I overindulge in a quality time thing. Like, spent too much time doing that. I had to get something else done, but don't rob yourself of your quality time either, right? That's why it's so important to sit with it for a little while and really think about what that quality time means. Because if we don't take the time to figure out what that quality time or constructive rest means, that parasympathetic boost, right? If we don't figure out what it is that really gives our bodies that rest, then we'll always feel like we're not rested. So it's really important, I think, the key to quality time as a love language to yourself is to sit with it. Figure out what it is that feels nourishing and like a big bear hug, right? If it's sitting and eating comfort food, everything's covered in gravy, that's fine. As long as you feel like that's quality time with yourself, right? And it could be lots of different things. It doesn't have to be one thing. I encourage you to sit, try some stuff out. I want to read this book. I want to lay on this pillow. I want to drink this drink. Or, whatever it is that you want to do. It doesn't have to be any of those things. It could be all of those things, but it doesn't have to be any of them. For me, I have to feel productive in something that satisfies the overachiever, but I also have to find something that's nourishing. So that's why I talked about, working on a passion project, or even playing a game. For those of you who don't know this, there's probably not many of you that don't, that know me personally. I am an avid World of Warcraft player. Me and my fiance are video game geeks, and we spend a lot of time in front of the computer playing video games, and World of Warcraft feels like constructive rest to me. I'm doing something I really, really enjoy, but it also feels like an achievement to me because there's goals to reach within the game, right? All right, so like geek out moment, but whatever. So, it may not come in the form of like doing chores or laying in the bath, right? There's no polarities here, right? There's just a smattering of whatever it is that makes you feel really, really good and gives you that constructive rest feeling. Over the past year, yoga has become that quality time for me. So giving myself the quality time is also very difficult because, there's like a self-worth component there. And I've gone through a job change and had a really hard time finding gainful employment after that. So, you kind of self-worth kind of takes a hit there. So I found it very hard for me to approach my mat without being upset with myself for taking extra time that I didn't feel I had. So again, we'll circle back to not stealing from yourself, right? In yoga, we have this concept called ahimsa. It's non-stealing. So don't steal that quality time from yourself. Quality time is meant to be there to give you that restful space. And if you shroud it with guilt and walk away from that thing feeling worse than you did before, then it's not quality time, right? You either need to go back to those words of affirmation that we talked about yesterday and start changing your self-talk so that your quality time can be quality and it's not just time spent feeling bad about yourself, right? So yoga is good quality time for me. However, whatever difficulty I've had approaching the mat, it still feels like quality time. Sometimes it's harder than others to get there. And sometimes I feel like I don't know what to do. Sometimes I just come in here and lay down on my mat. Doing asana or the postures is not required in yoga. Yoga means unity. And that means bringing all the pieces of self together when we're talking about what we can do for love languages for ourselves. I think it's important to understand that yoga is not just what you see in the magazines, and it's not just what goes on in the studio when the teacher's at the front of the class instructing you to take a posture. It's not just that. You have to understand what that teacher's gone through and the journey that they have in their own life. They're bringing an energetic and physical being to that space with you. And I think that understanding that yoga is just not the postures that you take or, the hot yoga that you hear about or this power vinyasa yoga, that is all yoga. Absolutely. And believe me, I lived in that space. I wanted to do that hot power vinyasa yoga, and it just gets old for me after a while. And it may not be like that for you. That may be your quality time. But, the important thing is with yoga is that you need to bring, the energetic body and the physical body together, and they both meet at the mat. Even in a hot power vinyasa yoga class, there's still an element of you need to get your act together and finish this class, right? Because I've been in those types of classes before where you're halfway through and you're like, I don't know if I can do this. So, understand that quality time is different for everybody. And if yoga is your quality time, also remember that yoga is whatever you want to make it, right? Don't do the class. Do what you want, right? Finding an instructor or a teacher that you really, really love may feel like quality time, but it may not. You may not like the structure, or that may not feel nourishing to you. Do a class at home. Right? If you join us at the Smudge House for a yoga class, we don't care if you just lay down on your mat and just lay there. We don't care. You're in your own space. You're on your own mat, right? If we were in a brick and mortar studio situation, it may be a little bit different, but probably not. So make the yoga yours, right? You don't have to do the hard stuff. You don't have to do the easy stuff. You can do all of it or anything in between. What kind of yoga is nourishing to you? Is it restorative yoga where we use lots of props and we get really smushy and it feels like adult nap time? Or do you like that vinyasa flow yoga where it's like constant movement and you kind of flow from one posture to the other? Do you like Ashtanga yoga? Ashtanga is a school of yoga with that's very regimented. It tends to be extremely difficult. I don't know a whole lot about Ashtanga because I have taken a few classes. There's chanting that's involved. There's lots of arm bindings, and it kind of pushes your body to the limits a little bit. The 3 levels of Ashtanga yoga. So that's kind of like a challenge for those of you who like a challenge and those of you that feel the challenge is nourishing to you. And then, of course, there's things like hot power yoga or, anything. Really, take a beginner's class, take a chair class. Don't do any of it. Do all of it. It doesn't matter. Your yoga can just be sitting on your mat and meditating. That's yoga too. Part of yoga is the meditation. It's the mindfulness. So if you spend a little bit of time just sitting down and thinking about what quality time means to you, that's yoga, right? That's kind of like a meditative thing because you're being mindful about what your body needs. So as we've kind of grown into complication around quality time, we'll take it back to the beginning. What feels good to you, right? When you're sitting across the table from that new date and everything kind of falls away and you have that moment where nothing else matters, what is it in your life that you can do for yourself that you don't need anybody else for, that will make everything else fall away and that moment be the moment that gives you that rest? So think about quality time. Take that test, figure out if that's your love language. And if it is, sit with it and try to figure out what quality time means for just you, not for anybody else. Because when we're talking about love languages this week, we really want you to focus on what's important for you and what is nourishing for you, especially in the weird times that we're living in. So thank you guys so much for joining me for day 3, talking about quality time. Tomorrow for day 4, we'll be talking about receiving gifts as a love language. We'll be talking about how yoga supports that. And I think that will be, we're going to do a Facebook Live meditation. So we'll have some really great stuff for you on Thursday. So don't miss it. Turn on your notifications. Remember, here at the Smudge House, we offer yoga and Qigong classes, and they're all virtual. So you can do them from the comfort of your home. You can even do them on your couch. If you feel like you need to do yoga in bed, most certainly please do that. We offer chair yoga, beginner's yoga, and a chill yoga because we're pretty relaxed here. And Qigong will help you move that prana or life force energy through the body, get rid of that dense stuff that may help you figure out what quality time means to you. So join us this week. Join us in our virtual studio. Please turn on your notifications so that you won't miss any of our content for our love languages and yoga series. And we will see you tomorrow to talk about receiving gifts